So I just wanted to start off by asking you a little bit about like what your life as a kid was like before the war.
Say that again, pal.
I just wanted to know like what your life was like as a kid, like your family life and
Oh
your
yeah.
home life.
Well, I was born in Cambridge, Mass. On October 23rd, 1922. And I lived at 22 Lake Street in Somerville. Went to St. Joseph's School. And I completed 9 years. Growing up, I played on Lake Street. Until I was old enough to go over to Lincoln Park.
So would you say that you had like a good life as a kid?
Yeah.
So would you say that the Great Depression had any effect on your life as a kid?
Well, my father worked. My father worked practically every day of the week during the Depression, and he was in a business where it was he made burial balls, and a lot of people passed away during that time. So actually, he had a full-time job during the Depression.
So you would say that for the most part you had a good life?
Yeah. I had friends that I went to school with, and we played together. The average games that were played in the street at that time.
So when you were talking about your education, would you say that you learned a lot about the First World War during your education?
Yeah, we studied some of it, but we didn't really go deep into it at that time. I learned more about World War I when I was in high school.
So were any of your other family members involved in World War One?
Yes, I had an uncle, my father.
Is that it?
And that was it, yeah.
So while you were growing up, did you hear a lot about like how the country was related to the rest of the world with like international affairs and stuff?
We didn't know too much about the international part of the world, other than what we might have seen in a newspaper. At that time, the world was fairly well at peace, after World War One. And so mostly what we were interested in is the events that took place around us.
Like nearby?
What?
Like nearby?
Yeah, like nearby,
So were you drafted or did you enlist?
No, I volunteered. I volunteered for the Navy at 20 years of age.
So like what were some of the reasons that you wanted to join? What influenced your decision?
I had always wanted to join the Navy, and at the time I wanted to join right out of high school, but my father wouldn't let me. So when the time came I was about to be drafted, I signed up for the Navy.
So, had Pearl Harbor happened already when you joined?
No. No.
Okay.
I'm sorry, yes it did.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Pearl Harbor had already taken place.
So would you say that that had any effect on your decision?
It was one of the deciding factors also.
So you would say that your family's reaction was negative when you joined?
No, positive.
Oh.
Yeah. Because my father, it was his thought that I wasn't old enough to go into the Navy until I had reached 20 years of age.
Okay.
No, there was not a negative attitude. Because he had served already himself. He knew what the Navy was.
Yeah. So about the drafting, although you weren't drafted, would you say that it was unfair to be drafted involuntarily?
No, that was one of the what do I want to say? That was one of the conditions that existed at the time when we went into World War II. People who didn't enlist were assigned a draft number.
Yeah.
Yeah. But my choice was to go voluntarily.
Yeah. So, once you had gotten into war, where did you first go after enlisting?
I went to Great Lakes, Illinois, Naval Training Station for my boot camp, where I was spent 9 weeks in training.
So, for the training, would you say that it was different from the military or the same thing?
The training,
Yeah.
it was something new that you never knew existed until you get out there in the training. It was all new to most of the recruits, but you gradually became involved in it.
So, what was the name of the ship that you worked on?
My first ship was on the USS LST 243, and that was, but didn't make that ship because when I was in training at the naval base out of Washington, I got sick, and I lost that crew, and eventually I was assigned to the USS LST 244.
So, what were the ships like? Just generally.
The ship was, well, it was called, the LST was called, an acronym called Long Slow Target.
So, what was the general missions of these ships, like the purpose of them?
We were involved in the landing invasions. And my LST was assigned to the Pacific area. And we carried troops, tanks, material.
Like war
material. And we discharged the whatever we were carrying when we went into the beach, during the invasion.
So what were some of the more, I guess, memorable events while you worked on the ship?
The invasions. I was involved in 3 invasions. The Gilberts,
Gilberts?
Gilbert, Gilberts. The Marshalls. And at the Marshalls, I was at Kwajalein, Kwajalein.
What was the...
And the Marianas, Mariannas. That was at Guam.
So, do you remember anything about the Gilberts? Like what it was like?
The Gilberts were, the activity was very, very light. But the other invasions, we were, my LSD was involved in H-Hour.
What's that?
That was the initial. H-Hour was the minute that all the invasion started and the bombardments started, and we were on our way into the beach to discharge our cargo.
So you would say that at the Marshalls and at the Marianas, the action was more heavy?
Yeah, the action was severe. Heavy bombardment. And we were accompanied by ships from the 7th Fleet. Those were battle wagons, carriers, destroyers, cruisers. All the vessels that made up the 7th Fleet.
So what was the I guess goal of these invasions? Just
to defeat the Japanese, who were entrenched on the island.
Yeah. So you were a quarters master?
Quartermaster, yeah.
Quartermaster.
He dealt with steering the ship and helping the executive officer with navigation. And chart correcting. That was about it.
So you had a pretty significant role on the ship?
Yeah. I was the leading, what do you want to call it? The leading division rated man on my ship. Yeah.
So what were some of the things that you did for fun on the ship, if any?
That I did what?
For fun?
Actually, you never had any. Well, the most you could do, you might do some reading. You didn't have at that time when you were in the war zone.
Yeah.
You didn't have time for anything other than your duties for your ship's duties. The only time things changed is when you went back into port, Pearl Harbor, and you had liberty.
So you visited Pearl Harbor a lot?
Yeah, 3 times we did. After each invasion, we went back for more orders. You might not have the same cargo, It all depends upon what was allotted to your ship for the invasion.
So did you make any friends on the ship?
Oh yeah, I had a lot of friends, a lot of good shipmates. Yeah.
And did you meet anyone from like the other countries in the Allies?
No, you were all United States sailors. Yeah. Once in a while, when you're in port at Pearl, you might see a British naval ship that was in for repairs.
So on the subject of the shipmates, how would you say that your relationships evolved?
Excellent. Yeah, I had one. You always make closer ties with certain people, and mine was a man from Pittsfield, Mass. Another sailor. But then as quartermaster, I got to know practically all the whole crew. Because I had more information than anybody else as to our destination.
So would you say that the your relationships with your shipmates helped you get through
Yes.
what you loved?
Yeah. Everyone helped each other. Some personalities were different than others. They came from all over the United States.
So, did you have any involvement with the Battle of Coral Sea or
No. We were all my LLC was assigned basically to the Central Pacific. The Coral Sea was south of our operating area.
So, back to the action. Do you think you were prepared for what you saw with like Gilbert's and Marshall's and those invasions?
It just became routine, as part of your sea duty. You knew you were in a war zone, and that was your not your chosen. That was your assignment.
Yeah.
You just did what. Basically, you took orders is what you did. And you took orders from the captain and your division officer.
So, I guess violence just became a natural part of work.
Yeah. You expected it when when you went to sea, when you went in the Navy, you knew that the Navy was going to do the fighting.
Yeah.
So you were part of it. And sometimes it became routine,
So would you say, or do you remember anything about hearing what was happening in Europe during this time?
You heard, we used to get, what did they call it? You would get radio messages once in a while, and we did get the news about VE Day through, well, I wasn't on the LST then, but I was down in, where was I? I was down in Texas then when VE Day came up. But you get very little news of what was, because you were only concerned with what was going on in your own area.
So, I just wanted to go back to the invasions again. What would you say that Guam was like, the invasion of Guam?
Guam was, well, for one thing, we were involved in when we were on the beach, we were involved in a typhoon, and it pushed us up further on the beach. And we were involved in a little, shore firing from the Japanese. But we suffered no direct hits.
Yeah, I saw that in your letter here.
Yeah.
There was something that I wanted to ask you.
About shore fire.
Yeah. So, at the Marianas, you talked a little bit about the shelling.
Yeah.
So what was that like?
Well, it was actually it's difficult to describe. You hear mortar shells being fired at you, and you just hopefully that none of them connect, none of them hit the ship, which it didn't. So I was on the bridge at the time because I was at the wheel. We were ready to get underway to move, get off the beach.
So, directly after the war, where did you go?
After Guam, I came back to the States, and from then on I was assigned to another LST and another ship which was built down in Texas. But we never went back over. The war ended and I was on a ship that was a new type ship, but we never got to prove it in any war zone.
So on the subject of the new ships,
yeah,
because after Pearl Harbor they started making more modern ships.
Yeah, right.
So as a quartermaster, you were pretty involved with.
Yeah, well, I was in what they call I was on what they call a preconditioning detail.
What is that?
Well, that where the ship was being built, you went to that shipyard, and the crew assigned there. We went there for training in how to operate the new style ship.
So you were part of like the first group?
Yeah, but that's what the first group assigned to the ship. In fact, Dad's got my material on the LSM 531.
So, what were some of the changes that you had experienced from your time in the Navy to when you got out, like back home?
Well, naturally, I went in at 20 and I get out at 24, and it was just like any other job. You had your certain assignments every day, and along with the rest of your shipmates. So it was like a Navy routine. So you had different things you do each day, and of course at the time I'd get liberties, go ashore.
So once you left the military, you still felt like you had.
Yeah, it took a while for that regimen, if you want to call it, to subside, because you were used to a certain routine every day.
So you were saying that it took a while to subside. So
yeah, to get back in the routine of civilian life.
So would you say that it was challenging to leave the military and or the Navy and come back to real life?
No, I think it was one of the accepted norms, if you want to call it. Once the war was over, you were discharged. Then you went back into civilian life. Some people took a lot longer, but
Yeah.
it all depends upon what your viewpoint was when you get out, and what your plans were for the future.
Yeah. So, did you stay in contact with any of your shipmates after the Navy?
No, I never did. Although I did hear from a cook. He sent pictures of that when we were on Liberty. I forget what it was. I think it was in Honolulu. But I never heard from any of them again.
So would you say that was challenging to have to lose contact with people that you had
Yeah,
studied with?
it changed your whole style of your life. For 4 years I was with, not the same people because I wasn't in the same ships all the time. But you were with Navy personnel, shipmates is what you want to call on each ship.
So, what did you do for work after?
Well, first of all, I went to work with a firm right next to my house in Somerville, making metal culverts for road building, and I did that for 1 month. Then I went back to the Navy Yard, where I had worked prior to going into the Navy. And I stayed there till November of 1947. I took the exam for the New England Telephone, NET&T. I passed the exam, and December 12th of 1946, I went to work for the telephone company, NET&T.
So, looking back on the war, would you say that you would have done anything differently, such as join the war? Or?
No, I would have done the same thing over and over again, because that was my choice. And coming from a Navy family, it was almost a certainty that I'd go into the Navy. And one of my brothers, two of my brothers, were also Navy men. So there were three in the family. 3 boys were in the Navy.
So, how would you say that the war has changed you in different aspects of life?
I don't know. It's a good question. I think it was just you grew up with it as part of your life cycle. You went through it, and you come out, thankfully, with no problem. And you went on with your civilian life from there.
So, in a way, hopefully it hadn't changed you that much.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I grew in age and experience, so. So I'm out of the world. Just that was it. So,
yeah. So your experiences, like it didn't really have any effect, like, to
No, it was an ordinary experience, just like thousands of others that who served in the armed forces. Everybody had a job to do, and that was part of your expectations.
So thinking back to your family members at home during the war,
Yeah.
do you know like what their experiences were like being in total war? Like,
Well, naturally they were worried. There was always that apprehension that and prayers to keep you safe. So, I mean, we all received letters from home, and I also received letters from the girl that I had met before World War II, and we corresponded for all those years, for 4 years, and eventually I married her.
so you corresponded with her?
Yeah, we
during the war?
corresponded. Yeah, I corresponded with aunts and uncles and cousins.
During the war.
Family. Yeah. It was a family tradition to send letters to men and women in the armed forces.
So would you say that your relationship with your future wife, what was changed by the war in any way?
No, it just carried on in the same,